Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. Well, in today's episode, we are looking at how to create powerful NPCs. Now, just what is a powerful NPC? Is that an NPC that's got all the magical items in the world, an entire Death Star at their disposal? They know everything that's going on? Well, not particularly. You can create the greatest arch-villain that the world has ever seen, but if he doesn't have true power, then he's just something that the characters can kill. So how do you invest true power into your NPCs? Well, there's a whole lot of different ways in which power manifests. And just because we say power, it doesn't necessarily mean evil either. You can have a good king who's very powerful, but how do you convey that to your PCs? How do you make sure that they get the idea that this is a powerful person? Well, we've got to unpack the different kinds of power. Now, the first kind of power, of course, is brute force. A big, well-armored, well-muscled, multi-armed, gigantic creature has power. That's physical power. And the way that you would bring that across to your PCs is by having them meet this character as they are busy throwing other individuals around, or by physically destroying something, throwing a massive oak table over in a fit of rage, ripping the head off an animal in the middle of a ceremony. So power, physical power, is the physical manifestation thereof. And you must make sure that that character has more physical power than any of the characters within the party. Otherwise, he's not powerful, he's equal. We're talking about creating unequal. We're talking about creating powerful NPCs, not equal. So he's got to be more physically domineering than any of the PCs in the group. So power, physical power, is a very good one, but at the same time, it's limited. Now, if you have a character who's physically powerful, can they be powerful in other ways? Yes, but you don't want to stack the odds too great in favor of your ultra-powerful NPC. Now, the trick is when you have an NPC who's so powerful, who's so untouchable, then you've lost the plot. Your PCs simply see no way to win. So there needs to be weaknesses, which we'll look at in another video. So a physically powerful character is one way of doing it. Wealth is the next one. Well, I have so much money, I really don't see you as a problem. I'll just buy an army to kill you. Or I'll just buy you. Or I'll buy the kingdom that you're in and I'll just make you an outlaw. Or I'll buy the satellite. I'll buy the starship right from underneath you. I'll buy the corporation. Money obviously carries a lot of power with it. You don't have to be physically powerful to be financially powerful. Financially powerful characters, however, tend to be very shrewd, very sharp, and almost very reserved in how they spend that money. So they'll do it if they're going to get a guaranteed return. And if they don't get a guaranteed return, then the power of what remains, their money, the power of what remains after they've spent their money is that spent on recouping that loss in flesh sometimes from the PC. So a financially wealthy character is very powerful. You can use this, as you can with the physical, to either enforce the idea that this character is good. You know, I have so much money. I want you to go out and save the world, and I'll pay for all your expenses. You need not worry. The finest equipment money can buy, spared no expense. We'll make sure that you are absolutely safe. The same person could be a villain, in which case all of the money in the world will be spent to destroy you, and I have unlimited resources, so you cannot compete against me. So wealth is a very, very strong form of power. Rank or position or station is another form of power. Now this one is often not regarded by PCs. A king or a queen, a duke or a baron, a captain or an admiral, someone who has presidential status, the PCs often treat as equals, simply because as GMs we allow them to do so. We don't have presidents surrounded by bodyguards who push the PCs back, because generally what will happen is the bodyguards might push them back, but then we have the president saying, no, it's all right. What is it that you wanted to say? And then the PCs say something, and then suddenly they're bosom buddies with the president forever moving forward. Of course, that same rank and privilege and power, when turned to being evil, is then one of a sadistic dictator who just wants to run the country. So we need, in terms of rank, in terms of station, in terms of privilege, we need to be very careful with how we use that power. It often goes hand in hand with wealth, because a president or an admiral has unlimited resources. Little bit different here, though, because there is a responsibility that that individual has to higher powers, unless they are the ultimate, in which case they're the king or the president. But even so, there are ramifications if they just spend. So their power is kept in check to a certain degree. So rank, position, again, the way that we want to reinforce that with the PCs is to have them meet an advisor first who says, well, he's the president, so try and keep 6 foot away from him at all times. Slow gestures, never reach into your pocket and pull out something. Just have some respect, and the like. So that's something to think about in terms of power. Another form of power, which is an interesting one, and we're going to cover the topic in another video at some point, is the power of sex, or seduction. A well-bosomed individual, a well-hung individual, individuals who are exceedingly charming. They are the ultimate in terms of power play on a personal level. They need to interact with an individual PC within the group, or maybe the whole group, but generally speaking they work in best on one-on-one. The power of the fairer sex, as the old expression goes. Well, who's the fairer sex these days? We don't know. Either way, there's sex involved, which makes everyone excited, doesn't it? The idea of seduction, of the allure, of that kind of thing, plays beautifully into PCs, especially PCs who have a soft heart. A poor innocent maiden or a poor innocent prince, someone who can't defend themselves because they have to wear pink and purple underwear on the outside and their name is Adam. Poor old prince needs help, poor old princess needs help. That's a power play using the art of their gender, their sexual wiles, their seductive technique. That's a power play. And it can be used really effectively, especially if your PCs buy into that kind of thing. If they have their characters fall romantically in love with these individuals that are luring them forward or sideways or whatever the case might be, that's a very, very useful narrative tool and a very powerful one. The queen who asks the champion to her private bedchambers and starts to undress whilst talking of her plans to execute the king is someone who's using their wiles to seduce the PCs. So seduction is a very, very strong power. Speaking is a form of power. Now, and comments on this channel have mentioned it as well. Depending on how one speaks, depends on how one is treated. So if you've got some sort of low-class accent, and I use low-class in the old form, if you've got some kind of low-class where no one thinks you've got no kind of breeding, and you don't understand what's going on because you use simple words, then you don't have much power. On the other hand, someone who speaks with a well-educated accent, we have been raised and almost socially indoctrinated to believe that those kind of accents are the ones that are authoritative. They know what they're talking about, and they can't possibly be lying or wrong. Well, again, that's a societal norm. On the other hand, we've also been programmed to understand that there are evil people out there who have strange foreign accents, whether it is a German accent or a Russian accent or an Irish accent or a South African accent. It doesn't matter. Accents, the way that characters speak, conveys a certain amount of power. Now, your PCs might not necessarily care about the accent that the individual is using, On the other hand, it's very, very useful for you as a GM to have this shorthand that this is a well-educated person or this is a not very educated person. Someone who doesn't really seem to know exactly what, if that's what you think is best. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't know. No, I'll leave that in your absolutely capable hands. You definitely know what you're doing. I'm just a bumbling old fool, really, who has all the power, because whilst you think that I'm an old idiot, I've actually worked out exactly how to destroy you and send you to your death. If you don't mind. So accent is a very, very useful tool in conveying power and also using it as a mask, if you like, where a bumbling idiot is actually conniving and secretive. Knowledge. Knowledge is power. And all too frequently, we invest in our NPCs the knowledge that the GM has rather than the knowledge that the NPC might have. Now, there's videos, metagaming good, metagaming bad, on how to deal with that kind of knowledge transfer from GM to NPC. But you can create NPCs who do have the upper hand. They hold all the cards, they have planned for everything, they are intellectually superior. They've got all the knowledge that they need. Now, that might be to help, that might be to guide the PCs, that might be the old librarian who scoffs at the idea that artifact is actually, it's not a symbol of rift. It'd be silly, that's a demonic symbol. We all know that. I studied those when I was young. Everyone should have. It's a very good learning. Knowledge is power and can be used for or against the PCs, and it's up to you as to how much knowledge that character has. Frequently, knowledge will lead to profit, but most of the time, those characters that have lots of knowledge are not interested in profit. They're interested in more knowledge. And that's something to bear in mind. Another thing that gives power, and this is a very subtle one, is withholding knowledge. So a character might be very knowledgeable, but at the same time might say, well, I could help you, but thing is, I don't remember, see? It was dark and, well, the lights were off and this bloke comes in through the door. I could maybe remember, what he looked like. Only my mind's a bit scattered at the moment because, you see, there's this very nice speeder that I've had my eye on for a while. Only I can't afford it. If I could take that burden off my shoulders, well, then I might be able to remember just what your bloke looked like. So the withholding of knowledge is equally as powerful. And although it might not be for your arch-villain who's going to withhold, I'm not going to tell you my great plan, ha-ha, now I have all the power. No, it is to be used as a power for an NPC, of course. Obligation is a wonderful power, and it's a theme that we frequently see, especially in cultures where duty and honor are seen as something of a virtue that everyone should have. So if your NPC has some kind of hold over the PC, some obligation that they owe a favor, perhaps this NPC has helped them in the past, and this NPC now asks them, well, I haven't asked you for anything ever before, but I unfortunately do need your help, and I hope that you can help me. And if they try and refuse, I had expected more from you when I first granted you assistance. I can see that that was ill spent. I thought you would repay your debts, but I was obviously wrong. I shall go and look elsewhere for more honourable individuals. So that's the power of obligation. You can almost force a situation to happen because of that. And it can be used for good or for bad. So that's something to look at. Disability is another power. Now, this one you have to be very careful with, but it can be used to great effect to differentiate the different types of power that you have. So the disability, the NPC that can only see out of one eye. You must stand on my good side. I can't see you, and apparently I'm also deaf. NPC who can't reach things because they're bound to a wheelchair. Or an NPC who can't remember things because they have short-term memory problems. An NPC who can't move about at all. starts to create an NPC who demands things of the players, especially if the players have to help in tending that NPC whilst the NPC is giving them information or moving them along. The old mother who has all of the information about the herbs that they need in order to save their companion. She can't give it to them while she's sitting in the bed. She must be sitting upright. The old doddering man who has to shuffle about the place. It creates these memorable characters who've got power over the PCs, and that's allowing you to control the flow of the story and to control the way that the events are unfolding. That's really where the power of a powerful NPC sits, is that you now control the situation rather than the PCs, which is a rare occurrence. Usually the PCs are the ones making all of the decisions, driving things in different directions. So you control that power. Then, and finally, the last piece of power is humor. Humor is a very, very powerful lubricant of society. And as a result, if the NPC is humorous, whether in physicality or in description or in dialogue with the players, let me tell you a joke. A horse walks into a bar and says, "Why the long face?" Oh no, hang on a moment. It's not the horse who says, "Why the long face?" No, I think it's the barmaid who says, "Why the long face?" to the bar. No, I forget now. Anyway, the idea is that humor is something that PCs don't necessarily expect from NPCs. And it, to a certain degree, disarms them. It takes their power away. They might be, "We demand that you give us all of the information that we seek." Well, I would give it to you, only I gave it away last week, and, well, I can't give it to somebody else now. That just wouldn't be proper, would it? Again, the NPC is trying to take control of the situation to use humor, and you can come up with much better options in terms of how humor is used. So those are, very broadly speaking, the different types of power that we have and use as human beings, and so you can translate those into your game. And it allows you to then, as I said, control the direction in which the game is going. The power, like I said, can be used for good and for bad, for the evil characters and for the good characters, and you should make sure to mix it up. So in other words, a good character can have a lot of power, maybe lots of wealth and knowledge. On the other hand, the evil character might have a disability, in which case when the characters charge forward to slay the evil witch, they discover that she's blind and she has appearance of no power, except that she's got power elsewhere in terms of perhaps seduction or something else that's going on. So you mix up the interplay. And what's also important is that people who have power, who have real power in this context, generally speaking, will have both aspects in them anyway. The philanthropist who's got more money than he knows what to do with, so he builds hypervelocity tubes in the middle of the desert, is the exact same philanthropist who is also stopping the PCs from achieving this goal because it doesn't suit him right now. Or he's paying for a jet, but he's not paying for all of it because he still wants the PCs to understand who holds the power. An evil villain who's trying to take over the world might be doing so because he believes that he'll be doing it and bringing about change within society, which will ultimately lead to a better society. So his power mongering is for a noble purpose, if you like, especially if he is actually bringing about a better state. So that's something to think about. Now, when power is used for good, it's used to protect, it's used to defend, and it's used to lead. So if you want your NPC, a good or evil NPC, to feel as if they've got true power, don't lord it over the PCs, "Ha ha ha, I have all the power and you have nothing," because I am an imaginary character that's made up by a GM who can give him all of the properties that he or she might need. A wealthy villain, she has all the money in the world because it's all imaginary. It's all sitting in the GM's head. So that won't convey the power. It'll just say, well, they've got power, and as a PC, I can't stop them because they are funded by the universe. So a good PC will use their power to protect, to defend, and to lead. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can use wealth to protect. I am hiring you to protect this wagon. It doesn't contain anything particularly valuable, but if the food doesn't get through to those starving peasants, I'm afraid it will be death. So I will pay you what coin I have to protect this wagon of food and make sure it gets to the orphans. Well, what better use of power there than to get the PCs to stick with the wagon, hopefully, and get there and save the orphans from the menace and distribute the food. Or alternatively, to steal the food and become an enemy of what was once your good, and still remains good, NPC. They now become evil in the eyes of the party because they're now hunting them and using all of that money that they were funding towards the starving individuals who now all starved to death, is now using that money to hire mercenaries to go after the PCs and try and get his pound of flesh back, quite literally. When you're using power for evil, generally speaking, it's to force an outcome. It is to blunt force trauma an outcome. So you are forcing the PCs. I will pay you 1,000,000 gold pieces to go and kill all of those starving wretches and get them off of my land. And I'll give you 10% up front, just as a good act of faith. I'm still good. Well, at least it appears that my NPC is good, but ultimately he is evil. So force, whether it's to force the outcome or to drive you to a specific outcome, that is what the NPC can use. And of course, manipulation is the other one. It's the opposite of force. It's the seduction. It's the offering of coin. It's the offering of knowledge. I will give you the secret that you desire. But first, I need you to do a small thing. There's a little village not far from here. If you could persuade the villagers to leave peacefully, that would be the best outcome. I would hate for us to have to move things along. So manipulation and force is generally how evil expresses that power. And you need to work out how all of those different power things can be expressed to create this sense. So if you want a truly good NPC, they need to be complex. They need to have different types of power, and they need to use that power in different ways, and you need to combine them together to create this rich NPC who has power and doesn't use it, or has this type of power and influences that type of power, or who is the power behind the power, and all of those kind of things. I hope this has been useful in terms of how to inject power into your NPCs and how to make them use it in a way that allows for your PCs to actually recognize that this individual is powerful and either good or evil. If it did, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, we'll be talking weaknesses at some point in terms of how to invest those into your characters and make sure that your NPCs have weaknesses so that they can be defeated. And there's a whole lot that we'll go through when we get there. Until next time, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming.